Oh, there it is.
I'm going to give it just a couple of minutes till we hit 12:30 exactly, and then we'll kick it off. Okay, everyone, my clock just hit 12:30, so I'm going to go ahead and kick off this live session. I want to thank everybody for joining. Today, we're going to be discussing the next generation protection at the edge. My name is Rachel Richburg. I am a strategic network consultant for Miraplex Communications, and I'm super excited to introduce our speakers today. Dusty Corning is on the call. He is our Senior Vice President of Technology here at Miraplex. And as Senior Vice President, Dusty leads the Meriplex core technology group that includes ongoing strategic initiatives for emerging technologies. He assesses the potential to enhance our company's portfolio and recommends new partnerships for our technology development. Our guest speaker today is Jonathan Martone. Jonathan Martone is the Vice President of Interconnections and Network Solutions and Netrality data centers. He leads all the strategic and technical conversations relative to the network services within Netrality data centers. His responsibilities include building out product strategy, business development, network design and planning, and providing the sales and sales engineering teams with support in technical and engineering. He's held various leadership roles in the data center and telecommunications for over 25 years. We're really excited to kick this off. So I'm now going to pass it off to Jonathan to get us started.
Hi, thank you, Rachel. So good afternoon, everybody. Hope everybody's having a great Friday. Wanted just to discuss with everybody from a high-level perspective who Netrality is and how we work with Miraplex. So we're the largest privately held data center operator in the United States. Our data centers are very rich from a network perspective. We provide data center services, wholesale services, powered shell, a rich connectivity tissue ecosystem that lives in each one of our data centers. And we also provide remote hands and roof rights. We own and operate all of our data centers. This map depicts all of our data centers in our markets, and we're kind of known as the epicenter of the edge in each of the markets we serve. So if you'd like to go to the next slide, I'll hand it over to Dusty.
Yeah, thank you, Jonathan. Yeah, so Miraplex is partnered with Netrality, and what we've offered several services that we base out of the Netrality solutions. As Jonathan mentioned, their facilities are really the epicenter at those locations. So, for example, here in Houston, the Netrality facility is where essentially the backbone of the internet comes through. So we've strategically chosen that location as one of our points of presence on our network. And from there, we offer multiple services to customers that benefit both our customers and customers of Netrality. So, for example, DR as a service, we offer disaster recovery back to the Netrality facilities. And we can replicate servers that customers have there to other facilities. So what we're going to talk about today is kind of the SD-WAN integration. And Miriplex's SD-WAN service provider, the manufacturer that we leverage on the SD-WAN side is VMware VeloCloud. So we have, from a service provider perspective, we have the Netrality facility online and tied into the VeloCloud SD-WAN service. So, so that allows us to provide customers with quality of service over the internet and direct access into the cloud environment. So they can access into cloud on-ramps, into AWS and Azure, Google Cloud, and others. So a couple of the the advantages really of SD-WAN outside of the cloud access and the quality of service, is that ability for customers to leverage any sort of connectivity. So, having a colocation, having it tied into your SD-WAN network, you're able to leverage whatever providers, carrier agnostic, to get that data to your data center, and then also directly connected into your cloud infrastructure. And that's kind of what you're seeing in the diagram there in the top right. Your customer data center in the Netrality facility, we can direct connect that in to the, AWS in this example, or Google Cloud, or any of the major providers, and give you access that way. So we'll go ahead and the next slide. Yeah. So just talking about the architecture of the solution that we have deployed in Netrality. So what makes the VMware solution so special is that it's a 3-tier architecture. And what that means is that there's 3 components that make up the architecture of the solution. You have the component of the device that goes on the customer site. So that's very much like a router, firewall combined into one. And that's what we're using to leverage to take in the connectivity, whether it's MPLS or internet or DSL, whatever. And then you have the orchestrator, which is on the top layer, and that's your management platform. That's where the management plane takes place, and we manage all those devices from a single point. But then what makes the VMware solution so much different than a lot of the other SD-WAN solutions out there is that it has a middle layer, which is the gateway layer. And those gateways are deployed in all the internet exchanges throughout the world, and that's where we tie in with Netrality. So we have those VeloCloud gateways deployed in the Netrality facility and tied directly into the backbone of the internet. So that's what allows us to enable that quality of service over the internet between the data center and your remote locations. And it also allows us to natively tie into the cloud, whether it be, again, AWS or Google or Azure. So, Jonathan, what are you seeing customers doing with interconnections from your side?
Yeah, so customers really like our data centers, specifically because, to your point earlier, the core backbone routers reside in the facility, so they like direct connectivity via cross connects from their cage cabinet environment directly to the core backbone routers. We have over 40 carriers in our facility, and fan-in specifically, that provide direct connectivity to the IP transit backbone routers. We actually have multiple IXs, internet exchanges, and CDN fabric that sits in the facility, so there's no backhauling. Everything happens in the facility, which reduces, obviously, latency, increases performance, and provides very cost-effective network assets that the customers can consume.
Absolutely. Go on.
Yeah, so this is kind of a depiction of the ecosystem. So the data center is kind of the epicenter of everything. So we do a really good job in providing diverse utility feeds into the data center to mitigate single points of failure for power. They're all dedicated substation, diversely fed. So if there's any sort of outage from the utility, there's another path. So our goal is to make sure that our customers, including Miraplex and their customers, are 100% uptime. Power space is fully mitigated, A and B and +1 from a power perspective. So that's kind of the physical data center assets themselves, and we have 20 megawatts of capacity in Houston. And then, as you can see here, we have, again, the ecosystem, core backbone routers, cloud on-ramps that Dusty mentioned via SDN fabric that have direct connectivity to all the different cloud providers. We can create different availability zone designs out of the facility to mitigate points of failure from a cloud on-ramp standpoint. We have CDN and IX. We talked about that a little bit, but we do have the local caching CDN and IX services that can be consumed via cross connect. And then, so Then we go up the stack, and that's where we partner with Miraplex, who can provide managed service security services to our data center customers in the data center and also outside of the data center. So an end-to-end connectivity tissue that provides fault tolerance, disaster avoidance, and mitigates single points of failure from that perspective.
Yeah, another interesting service that we offer out directly out of the data center is voice. So, customers, we have our voice core network inside the Netrality facility there in Houston. So we can deliver dial tone directly to other customers without having to have a separate circuit, a single point of failure there. So that's good. When you're looking within the ecosystem, it's those kind of creative concepts that you can do and eliminate any of those points of failures within your network. So you're really wanting to make the data center your core and have everything delivered from within the data center.
Yeah, great point. And we can't do it without Miraplex. Again, we're the data center operator. We don't go up the stack, and that's where the symbiotic relationship works, where we can work with mutual customers on a end-to-end solution.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked a little bit about this, but really from a cloud on-ramp perspective, you want to make sure that you have access to multiple SDN fabrics within the data center. And obviously we have multiple availability zones in the facility for Amazon, Microsoft, Google, Alibaba, IBM, Salesforce, et cetera. We also want to make sure that the core backbone routers are there. You're not getting backhauled. You're not having local loops. You're not spending extra money going to a different central office. All the core infrastructure sits in the facility. Again, we talked a little bit about this earlier. We want to make sure that they're 100 gig enabled. All the backbone routers that sit in our facility are 100 gig enabled, and we're actually talking 400, 800, and terabit services in the next year. So obviously with people consuming more network services, the exponential growth from an IP transit perspective is here. So we're planning with our backbone provider partners to make sure that there's enough bandwidth from a layer 3 perspective to satisfy the consumption. And we talked about peering. Obviously, you want to have IX, Internet Exchange capabilities via cross-connect, as opposed to backhauling those as well. And then finally, having the ability to consume CDN services through customers like Akamai, Limelight, Cloudflare, et cetera, that can provide as a service to our data center customers. And
so the direct connects to like AWS or Google Cloud or Azure, those locations. We have a cloud on ramp straight off of the SD-WAN. So if you're just using SD-WAN, you can access those Office 365 and such just natively through the SD-WAN. But a lot of customers want to have their own dedicated private connection into their AWS tenant, and we can do that as well. So you can leverage these direct connects directly into the facility, and from there tie natively into the SD-WAN backbone, which would then be accessible from all of your SD-WAN locations, wherever it is across the country. So that's kind of the couple different architectures that we have there, and it really depends on if you want that dedicated connection into your specific environment, or if you want the on-ramp into the more general environment of the cloud provider. And we also offer like I said, the local peering. So we can do BGP peering with customers directly. If you have your own AS number, we can announce that and provide redundancy there. And there's other carriers, multiple carriers in the facility that can do the same. So.
And you can also enable quality of service on top of your SD-WAN services for customers. So if they want to prioritize their Amazon compute in a remote location or in the data center, you can prep those routes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we can provide that. A lot of times customers will have quality of service for their voice, and video. A lot of voice and video, especially right now with COVID. But yeah, we can prioritize any sort of business applications, or specific applications that the customer wants. So, and we can extend that end to end all the way into their environment. So, yep.
Yeah, so the next slide, we're going to kind of tag team this, but from a, obviously it's about edge computing, but also securing that edge services. So we're going to make sure that that the managed service provider is a key element in that ecosystem, that they can provide guidance to companies moving compute to the edge, right? So we're seeing a shift from some public cloud consumption to a hybrid model where some applications work better at the edge. You get that compute closer to the users, which increases performance, reduces costs, and gives you more control. And then finally, ensure that the compute's secure at the physical layer, the network layer, and application layer. So some of the things we do from a physical perspective, obviously, is make sure that the power and space is secure with all of our security requirements from a data center perspective. But you also need to protect your data beyond when you go up the stack. So that's where SD-WAN services that Miraplex provides coincide. And Dusty, I don't know if you wanted to talk a little bit about some of the other security services.
Yeah, I mean, so, security has been a big deal for several years, but even with COVID, it seems like it's gotten even more light shine on. There's a lot of ransomware and stuff like that. So Meriplex has been working with customers to design kind of an end-to-end security solution for them, and it's the SD-WAN's a component of that. The SD-WAN's encrypted from end to end. It's got built-in firewall capabilities, so we can mitigate security risks in that regard. But you really need to look at the holistic picture. So all the way from the desktop, antivirus, all the way up to even the physical security. And so, that's something at the Netrality facilities that I've been so impressed with, is the level of physical security that they have between the entryways where you have the locking doors and the security 24/7 manned facilities, the cameras, all of that access control. So a lot of physical security at the facilities, as well as the cybersecurity that we integrate into the SD-WAN and into the rest of the stack. So.
So I just want to leave everybody with a couple of key takeaways here. So number one, need to ensure that your mission critical compute resides in a carrier-rich edge data center, which improves performance for your users and your customers. Make sure that your services are consumable securely and with reliability. Identify rich ecosystems, access to core backbones, cloud on-ramps, SDN fabric, managed service providers, security service providers via cross-connect, which is really important for performance and security and cost. Definitely want to partner with companies that can provide you a comprehensive services up the stack. So not just at the data center services level or the network services level, but tying in all the different services beyond the data center, including the data center in a form factor. And then finally, let's start thinking about bare metal storage, public cloud with confidence via security services. So as customers are starting to consume more on-demand services in the data center from an edge perspective, including bare metal storage, make sure that compute is accessible, but also securely accessible with an MSP like Miraplex that can provide that additional security up the stack.
Yeah, from a connectivity perspective, we like to leverage SD-WAN now. We still provide MPLS, but certainly SD-WAN has been the driving the shift there in the last several years. But that gives us secure connectivity to all the customer locations and can integrate the colocation natively into the cloud environment. So you can make a single connection into your cloud and data center space that's accessible natively to all of your remote locations. Looks like we have a question here. When choosing a data center provider, what's the most important? Power, cooling, access, security, or something else? Jonathan, you want to take this one?
Sure. Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think all of the above. You want to make sure that the data center operator has multiple diverse power feeds. You don't want to be single-threaded from a power perspective. Same with cooling. You want to make sure that you have the cooling capabilities that if you do run out of power, that you have the ability to cool the data center services on top of that. Security, you want to make sure you have the controls, the access controls. ultimately, you also need to make sure that that data center operator has those security compliances that are up to date, whether it's SOC or PCI or HIPAA, and you also want to make sure that that all the certifications are done on an annual basis, and most data center operators have all the details around that.
Yeah, I would add to that a little bit. One of the things that we look at when we're looking at different data center partners is around the cross connect and the interconnect capabilities. Making sure that there's a ample amount of providers there that we want to connect to, but also the cost of those cross connects. Because in some facilities that we're in, we pay more money for the cross connects than we do for the actual colocation space. So you really got to look at that as well if that's important to you, the connectivity. So.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, you also want to make sure that there's multiple networks to mitigate single points of failure. And most customers that are deploying in data centers are running BGP or have 2 or 3 different carriers to mitigate points of failure, both from a dark fiber perspective, from a DWDM standpoint, IP transit, MPLS, SD-WAN as well. So as long as you have a contingency plan, because a lot of carriers do have planned or unplanned maintenance windows. So it's always good to have diversity on the network services you consume. Good point.
Yeah, that's actually one of the next key takeaways is, being able to utilize a service, what we call a service provider agnostic solution. So, being able to leverage multiple carriers, whoever's got the best, cheapest connectivity into the building at that given moment. And still being able to tie it in securely into an overall wide area network solution that works for all the sites. So, do we have another question? I saw one come in. So, how important are network capabilities in your decision-making process? Yeah, that's what we were talking about. The network, network capabilities. I mean, you want to make sure when you're choosing the site, that you have to have the accessibility into that and being able to tie it into your wide area network. So, it's different across multiple different carriers. I mean, some data centers have just a handful of providers. Some data centers have no providers and they want to provide all the internet. You have a single point of failure there. And then some are what they call carrier neutral, right? And then that's how Netrality is carrier neutral. You've got 40 different providers, Miraplex being one of them, that you can choose from, and just get the diversity and the amount of bandwidth at the price that you want to pay. And then using the SD-WAN, you can tie it all together into a solid wide area network that you can provide quality of service out to your sites. So, did you have anything to add on that, Jonathan?
Yeah, especially if you're running an MPLS or an SD-WAN service across multiple carriers. If they do have the core backbone routers in the facility, they obviously have 2 or 3 different fiber paths. So from a resiliency standpoint, if you're head-ending your SD-WAN services in a hardened data facility, the chances of your SD-WAN services going down are very remote because you're running single mode fiber cross connects from your compute to that core backbone router for MPLS or IP transit. So that mitigates additional network issues or maintenance issues.
Yeah, that's a great point. You want to make sure that the carriers that you're really interested in looking at, that they've got that core backbone, so they have those diverse routes. Yeah, otherwise, even with one, you're gonna have a single point of failure. So, the other thing is being able to migrate your workloads, between the colocation and the public cloud, using those secure private interconnections. So we can put direct connects in between your colocation and your cloud, and we can move workloads back and forth. And then just extending, the last key takeaway was just extending the unified security posture across your entire network, colocation, and cloud environment. So you shouldn't be using a different security for one environment versus the other. I mean, really, it's a holistic, complete network between the remote sites and the colocation and the cloud. So you want to treat it as one unified network and provide a mature security posture across all of it. So.
Perfect. Well, is there anything else you wanted to add, Dusty or Jonathan, to any of the takeaways or conversation?
One thing I wanted to mention was the Netrality marketplace. So if you go onto the Netrality website, they have, I think it's in their solutions or products, drop down, they have a marketplace there. Miraplex is one of the vendors on the marketplace, but there's other vendors out there also. And what's really cool about it is you can go on there and you can see the different services that those providers offer natively out of the data center. So if you look at the Meriplex one, it's going to show you not just the SD-WAN and DR as a service and voice I mentioned, but other things like the security, like firewall as a service or VPN as a service that we host natively in those facilities. And so if you're in those facilities or tied in those facilities, you can take advantage of that. And it's all contained within your colocation. So.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, especially you have that Fortinet security service as well. So there's product information, design guides, network maps of all the different ecosystem participants in the Netrality marketplace, and you can contact them directly, and we can help. We can be part of it, or just allow you to work with our other participants. But we're definitely Switzerland, and we want to make sure that everybody in the marketplace is successful.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Dusty and Jonathan, for joining our live session today. If there are any additional questions, feel free to reach out to Miraplex, myself or Dusty, or Netrality Data Centers as well. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Awesome. Thank you, Rachel.
Thanks.
Thank you, Rachel.